What's up guys, welcome to AnimeKouhai. If you want to help me out, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel.
Things were going the way that Yuki had planned. Maribel had lost, and Yuki gained even greater power. He also successfully negotiated with Granbell. There was something interesting that he heard during their discussion, which was the reason why he gathered everyone today.
Then, let me get to the conclusion first. There is one more job we need to finish before heading east.
Everyone seemed to be stunned at the news. Glancing around at his audience, Yuki switched to a more serious expression.
Listen up now. I'm going to explain this in detail from the start.
After he finished, Yuki began sharing the contents of his meeting with Granbell. How peaceful. I've been busy every day now that I returned to the capital of Tempest Federation, or more commonly known as Rimuru. I knew for sure that Maribel was dead. When the dust had settled, I ordered people to head down the ruins and investigate, yet no body or items of value were found. She probably died from the explosion when she self-detonated that engine reactor like Yuki claimed, or maybe it was all smoke and mirrors. Regardless, every problem had been resolved regarding the issue. Maribel was the princess of the Shitara kingdom. The princess attacked us in the ruins. If we were to publicly announce this bit of news, it would only make matters worse. That was why we secretly contacted the Shitara kingdom and regarded the matter as an accident that unfortunately occurred. The fact that we were able to negotiate at all was because neither country wanted the incident to be in the public eye. We were both well aware of the ramifications, hence the open cooperation. There were always plenty of accidents when it came to royalty with deep historical roots. We quickly reached an agreement and did not escalate further conflict. Their king and queen appeared to be very cruel and ruthless. With parents like that, it was no wonder Maribel wanted to rely on knowledge from her previous life. If she had the chance to happily live out a brand new life as a naive child, would she have turned out any differently? With that being said, that was just an afterthought. Let us check on the 5 great elders now. The head of the 5 great elders, the one that instigated Maribel, was the leader of the Rosso clan, Granbell Rosso. I put myself on guard thinking that he would be plotting something, but it was surprisingly not the case. I suppose that was the right move. It would have been a public acknowledgement of their illegal doings had he acted in some way. As long as we also stay quiet, they wouldn't be able to do anything. In fact, more than a month had passed since the incident. Granbell had been completely quiet the entire time. This brief break still gave us plenty of time. We effectively utilized information collected by Soe to gain intelligence regarding the underbelly of the Western nations. We realized that there was no bigger threat than the Rosso clan. For instance, their friendly relationship with the mercenary band, Apostles of Vert. But we also discovered several organizations that we had to keep our eyes on. However, it was still unclear as to whether my policies and interests had any direct conflict with them. Unless they openly declared a hostile attitude towards us, we had no reason to retaliate. I didn't want to stir up trouble myself. For now, we only needed to observe their every move. Furthermore, we were on good terms with the Freedom Association. We also had the Western Saints Church as our benefactor. It wasn't unreasonable to say that there shouldn't be a single organization out there that would dare to oppose us. As a result, Tempest Federation became the largest faction within the Western Council. It was now a peaceful early afternoon. As per usual, we organized a meeting among the executives. In a short period of time, we had virtually replaced the 5 great elders. Probably that was why a whole new set of problems suddenly appeared, most likely a direct consequence of their absence. The Western Council undoubtedly played an important role in directing the decisions of the Western nations. Inside the council, the councillors of each nation would cast their vote to decide whether a motion passed or not. The diplomatic weight of a nation's words corresponded to the number of councillors they had. Since we learned about the weaknesses of each nation in the council, our councillor will have to take on the role of mediator. As our influence on the Western nations gradually grew, complaints and petitions from other countries inevitably increased. It was like they were saying, it won't cost you your life just by expressing your opinion, which emboldened people to give us all sorts of requests. That was why conquering the world was nothing but a fool's errand. Being a ruler was definitely not easy. It was no wonder why the other demon lords weren't interested in other people's territories at all. If they accidentally received a tract of impoverished land, they would have to figure out a way to alleviate the local populace's dissatisfaction. Reducing the wealth gap was easy to talk about in theory, but for the person actually handling the mess, it was a difficult job. Each region's total capital was made up of their inherent resources and labor within. I believed the proper way to resolve the wealth gap issue was to cut down on costs, calculate the resulting profits, and redistribute them. On the other hand, we needed to be cautious with subsidizing local regions. If we didn't handle the matter appropriately, it would become a breeding ground for grievances. Now that our nation was the largest faction in the council, we were expected to behave accordingly. While organizations that opposed us were being contained right now, it was only a matter of time before they began rising up again. Then there was the problem of who we should send to the council. This person needed to be socially adept and possess a certain degree of charisma. But at the same time, when conflicts arose, they also needed to be intimidating enough to keep others from talking back.
First things first, I want to apologize for having to turn down this task,
I announced. After all, the early bird gets the worm. It was rare that I considered myself to be devious, but even I didn't want to take the initiative on this hot mess. Benimaru followed in my footsteps.
Me neither. The last meeting made me realize that my personality is not suited for trying to probe other people. When I am not on the battlefield where my martial prowess can be displayed, I won't be of much use.
While he sounded too modest, what he said probably was genuine too. Indeed, those sly nobles would be too much of a hassle for Benimaru to handle. Likewise, Soe also rejected the job.
My duty is to collect information. As the eyes and ears of Rimuru-sama, I'm afraid I can't abandon my position right now.
Well, I somewhat guessed that already. I didn't want to send Soe as well. Geld wouldn't do either. Although he had good morals and was a very reliable man, the current work assigned to him was more important. Due to the large number of construction projects that were lined up, he had no free time on his busy schedule. I figured that Geld would be perfect at handling the counselors, but right now, I definitely had to remove him from the list of potential candidates. In that case,
will you be sending me?
At that moment, I glanced at the source of the question and saw Gabble, who was attending the meeting with a serious expression on his face. He's surprisingly self-aware, so he probably wouldn't turn down such an important role. No, I should say that I felt pretty uneasy, but I couldn't think of any other suitable candidates. I already made Hakuro our military advisor and asked him to train our soldiers. As for Shuna, while having her as our counselor was a possible solution, doing so would doubtlessly have a negative impact on the overall affairs of the country. Based on the same rationale, I naturally couldn't send Rigurd and the other goblin chiefs. As a newborn nation, we needed to draft our laws and negotiate with other governments. There were also other problems such as managing an increasing population. The chiefs would handle these challenges first, but without the support of Shuna and Rigurd, all of these affairs would sadly have to be put on hold. Even though they were the ones nurturing the next generation, there was always room for improvement and development.
I want to tame the wyverns that were captured and use them as mounts in order to strengthen our air force. This training would require a huge consumption of all sorts of potions, so I still want to continue collecting data.
That's right. As the saying went, the right person for the job. I believed that Gabble's talents were a perfect match for what he had suggested. As opposed to forcing him to attend the council, I would rather have him focus on raising wyvern troops.
Alright, Gabble, you should continue to handle the matter.
He gave an expression of relief.
Yes, sir. Understood.
It's no good forcing tasks down other people's throats, which was why I thought this was the correct choice. But even so, the growth of our domain was too fast. It was a bad idea to expand our reach before we've even nurtured our talents, but the number of jobs we had to deal with was increasing at an unstoppable rate. It was very troubling. It can't be helped, I guess. Let's try to think of other alternatives. Just when I was starting to brainstorm, my gaze suddenly locked onto Shion, who was staring at me with sparkling eyes.
Rimuru-sama,
No.
I immediately cut Shion off. She was probably trying to toss her hat into the ring, but Shion was definitely not up for discussion.
Why?
Shion asked with a surprised look. Geez, I'm the one who's surprised by your reaction.
Let's think of a scenario. This is only an example, but let's say you're a counselor. There's a lascivious old man with a big belly in front of you. He's a counselor, too. And then, that old man gently places his hand on your shoulder like he's a very close friend. Now, how will you react?
It's obvious. I grab that man's neck with my left hand, lift him up, and punch him without hesitation. I gotta hit him.
Isn't the answer. That's why Shion was out of the question. Although Shion's growth was an indisputable fact, there were still many parts about her that I couldn't feel relaxed about. Like what happened a few days ago. When I went inside the restaurant, Shion was there, looking at me with a huge smile that covered her whole face. Next, she held out the plate that was in her hands.
Rimuru-sama, I have been waiting for you. I finally made a cake with my own hands as well. Now, please try it. It tastes exactly like what Shuna-sama makes, but the portions are several times larger. Don't be shy, Please eat your fill.
What I felt right then was definitely a bad feeling. But Shion had learned to brew a delicious cup of black tea. Because of that knowledge, I let my guard down.
Oh, thank you. Then let's try it.
After saying that, I accepted it without much thought. It was a mistake. On the plate was a big chunk of what looked like a konjac. I suddenly became grave. What cake? After looking at that object, I glanced around for help. Nobody was there. Did they all run away? No, Gobchi was lying down in the kitchen. He was definitely a victim. I realized that I had come in at the worst possible time, but it was already too late.
Oi, is this a cake?
Yes. The taste was perfectly reproduced.
The taste is perfect? Doesn't that just mean everything else is awful? Shion was very confident, and looking at that pleased face only caused my uneasiness to increase. While regretting my own foolishness, I decided to take a bite. I took a spoonful and brought it in my mouth. I didn't need to say much more about the results. I thought I was going to throw up. The texture was konjac, but the taste was sweet cake. It had a gray color, and just like its appearance, it felt as if I was chewing on konjac. It was then that I realized how important visual information was with a cake. No, it wasn't something limited only to cakes. With cooking, appearance was also essential to enjoyment. Even if the ingredients are served as is, they do not look delicious.
How is it? Doesn't it taste good?
I was annoyed looking at Shion's proud face, as if she wanted to declare, "It's perfect, right?" From the beginning, Shion didn't know the basics. The very first step, what is cooking, she had made zero progress on this rudimentary stage.
Sit down. Sit there for a moment. I have to scold you a bit.
Huh? It can't be. Why?
Shion went from being all smug to teary-eyed in an instant. She was taken aback and didn't know what to do, but I didn't care and started lecturing her. For about 30 minutes, and in earnest. I talked to Shion about what cooking really was so she could understand.
That's it for this video, guys. Thank you for always watching my videos and supporting my channel. Shoutout to Hiren Bojwani, Sama Nisan, Night Gazer, Rembaru, JRDMPHX, Luminaseka, Amaryl Tempest, The Epileptic Skeptic, No Ducks Given and Then Some, and last but not the least, shoutout to Sayuri Miyamoto. I'll see you guys in the next video.